Hi, I'm Cindy Lockhart, an integrative and functional nutritionist, here to talk to you today about food as medicine for estrogen detoxification. It's all about balance. It's about our inputs versus our outputs. In regards to inputs of estrogen, it comes from how we make it in our body. In premenopausally, women are going to primarily make it through the ovaries, but we also make estrogen in our fat cells. We know that as a population, 50% of us are overweight or obese. So we've got estrogen being produced in our bodies. We also get it through what we bring into the body through food, in our diet, as well as medications such as oral contraceptives or hormone replacement therapy. And then there's the environmental inputs. That's what we're absorbing from the environment, from pesticides and chemicals, personal products, cleaning products. We're inhaling and absorbing through our skin. Then it's a matter of what does our body do with it? How do we metabolize and eliminate this excess estrogen? That's going to primarily come through the digestive system. Also, fat loss. The less fat, the less estrogen. So how does the balance change over time? Let's look at this graph. Between the ages of 35 and 50, you can see that estrogen will decline by about 35%. Compared to progesterone by 75%. So we can see just by looking at the natural decline in hormones, we're going to have a bigger gap during that age span. So more of what's called estrogen dominance, too much estrogen in relation to progesterone. Doesn't necessarily mean if you test your estrogen levels that they're going to be high above the range, but they're going to be high in relation to progesterone. Remember, it's a balancing act. One of the reasons, especially in today's population in America, is stress. Under stress, we're going to steal progesterone to make cortisol in response to the stress response of fight or flight. We know that we're taking, making, and absorbing estrogen, so we're going to have estrogen on board. So here's one of the big problems, is we're going to have estrogen, but we're not going to have as much progesterone because we're stealing it to make cortisol. So that's one of the main contributors to why we have this imbalance in our society. What are some of the symptoms and conditions associated with estrogen dominance? Estrogen will stimulate the growth of our female organs. So you can see with the bold font, a lot of the conditions that will be associated with this imbalance. Things like fibrocystic breasts, polycystic ovaries, uterine fibroids, endometriosis, ovarian cysts or PCOS, and breast cancer. The regular font are going to be a lot of symptoms that are associated with this hormone imbalance. And it has been shown through statistics that over 50% of women over the age of 35 are struggling with estrogen dominance. Another topic I'd like to cover is the receptors. There's an estrogen receptor alpha and an estrogen receptor beta. The big things to know is that the alpha receptor is going to preferentially bind estrone, which is our predominant hormone produced after menopause, and can increase the cell proliferation and increase our risk for cancer. The beta receptor, on the other hand, is more preferentially binding estriol, which is our least prevalent and our least estrogenic or potent estrogen, as well as isoflavones. So those are the components found in our food, or phytoestrogen, so plant sources of estrogen. And this acts as an antagonist to the alpha receptor, so it actually helps to prevent our risk for cancer. So it is a protective receptor. So now let's talk about metabolism and elimination. So metabolism of estrogen is going to start with the liver. There's two primary phases of detoxification that occur. Phase one is taking that fat-soluble estrogen, making it more of an intermediate metabolite that's actually more reactive, more damaging than what it started with. So we have to make it more water soluble through phase two, conjugate it, bind it, and remove it from the body through urine, stool, and bile. And we can see that those phases of liver detoxification require a lot of nutrients. So that's where the diet comes in. And we're going to talk about a few specifics in just a few moments. So bottom line, we need to make sure the liver is healthy, that we're properly able to get through both phase one and phase two of detoxification, and we're eliminating that estrogen out of the body through the stool in particular. So a good rule of thumb is to have 1 to 2 formed bowel movements a day or 12 inches in length. And that's going to ensure that you have proper elimination to do that job. There is an enzyme called beta-glucuronidase that actually deconjugates that estrogen and allows it to reabsorb back into the body. So some of the tactics we're going to be talking about are going to also impact whether we're reabsorbing it into the body or we're eliminating it out. Aromatase, an enzyme that will convert testosterone into estrogen. Why you need to know this is aromatase is found in our fat cells. So here we go back to the overweight and obese population. We have body fat. The more body fat we have, the more aromatase we have. More conversion into estrogen. Less testosterone, more estrogen. Also, just an interesting point is metabolism of estrogen into 3 different metabolites: 2-hydroxy, 16-alpha-hydroxy, and 4-hydroxy. I call them the good, bad, and the ugly. The 2-hydroxy is the most protective form of estrogen. 16-alpha-hydroxy is controversial in regards to the evidence. Some say it's neutral, others say it is still pretty damaging and carcinogenic. What we do know, though, is the 4-hydroxy is the most damaging and the most carcinogenic. It actually damages our DNA. So that's known as the ugly metabolite. And how we live our life and how we eat will impact metabolism into these different metabolites. We also want to make sure that we're methylating. So we've heard the word methylation before. If we're properly methylating the 2-hydroxy and 4-hydroxy metabolites, we actually make them less active and less damaging. Again, things that are nutrients will be able to assist us, especially in regards to B12, folic acid, B6, glycine. Those are supports in magnesium for the methylation to occur. So let's talk diet. What can we do? I've got a couple foundations that I think are really important for estrogen detox, and that's to go organic, especially when you're looking at animal protein products and dairy products, as well as the dirty dozen list of fruits and vegetables. By going organic, we don't have the excess antibiotics, hormones, or pesticides being added to the animals, as well as to the crops that can increase that estrogen from the environment known as xenoestrogens. Go anti-inflammatory, low glycemic. Really focus on whole natural foods, foods without labels. If there is a label, there's only a minimal amount of ingredients, like 3, and you can identify every single one of them. Colorful plant nutrients, healthy fats, critical to keep the inflammation down and to neutralize any free radical damage that's happening from the way we live our lives. Lower carbohydrate. More carbohydrates, more sugars means we're going to produce more insulin. Insulin is our fat storage hormone. Fat has aromatase, which converts to estrogen. High fiber. 25 to 35 grams a day is the rule of thumb for women. Fiber is going to help to bind the estrogen so that we can eliminate it out through the body. It also helps to decrease that beta-glucuronidase activity so we're not reabsorbing it back into the body. Adequate protein. Amino acids are essential for phase 1 and phase 2 of liver detoxification to occur. So we need to make sure we get a high quality protein source every time we eat. I like to opt for organic options, pasture raised, chicken and turkey, grass-fed beef, bison, any of your game meats, also wild versus farmed caught fish. Reducing our weight. We know that our obesity and our fat cells are going to convert into estrogen through the aromatase. So making sure that we're regulating what we're eating and how we're eating. Quality will always trump quantity in regards to our food quality and nutrient density, and then also portion control, making sure it's not too much or not too little. What are some other specifics? Cruciferous vegetables, things like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, bok choy, and kale, high in a component called diindol methane, which really helps to support metabolism to that healthy metabolite, 2-hydroxy. We may need supplementation to get a therapeutic benefit of the diindol methane to support that methylation. Increased phytoestrogens, organic fermented soy and flax. These types of estrogens have up to 1/1000th the potency of what we make in our body and what we're exposed to in the environment. It also helps to decrease aromatase and blocks the alpha receptors to decrease our cancer risk, and also increases that protective metabolite, 2-hydroxyestrogen. Increasing lignans from flax and legumes and vegetables. These all help to decrease aromatase as well as the proliferation of our cells. Also increases sex hormone binding globulin, which is going to bind the estrogen, make it less available for binding to our receptors. Increasing probiotics. This comes back to the gut health. Having a healthy microbiome and bacterial balance in our gut is our first line of defense to help support digestion and elimination, but also to protect that fragile intestinal barrier. This can come from fermented dairy. I opt for organic plain kefir or a cultured or Bulgarian plain yogurt. Vegetables like kimchi or sauerkraut also work. We may need the supplementation. That's actually one of the foundational supplements I recommend for everyone, just because, again, the way we live our life, we're constantly breaking down that bacterial balance. Reduce alcohol. Alcohol will actually increase estrogen production. So I recommend for women to restrict to 3 drinks a week. Avoid plastics and cans. What are our foods stored in at the store as well as at our home? That makes a difference. There are components in those plastics called bisphenol A or BPA. And if it's BPA free, it may be another derivative like BPS, which is just as toxic. So when you're looking at these sources, look for a 2, 4, or 5 on the bottom of that product. Those are going to be your safer bets when it comes to plastics. So in closing, women's hormone balance is a balancing act. We want to limit our exposures, what's coming into the body, and we want to help improve our gut and liver health so that we can properly metabolize and eliminate that excess. And we need to manage our stress levels, keeping those progesterone levels up naturally. A good place to start is with the diet. Whole natural organic foods versus a processed packaged food diet. Nutrient balance, 50% of the plate coming from colorful plant nutrients, 3 times more vegetables and fruit because of the natural sugar content, a high quality protein source, and lots of healthy fats. And high fiber, 25 to 35 grams. I like to shoot for 30 as a good rule of thumb. And with that, I thank you for your time.